Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. I want you to settle in because we are about to tackle a subject that is often overshadowed, but is absolutely vital to understanding military aviation history.
It's great to be here. And overshadowed is definitely the right word. We're looking at a piece of engineering that really held the line when, frankly, nothing else could.
Exactly. So before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's do a little visualization exercise. I want you to picture the summer of 1940, the Battle of Britain.
The fate of Europe is on the line.
You look up at the sky over the white cliffs of Dover. What's the silhouette you see? I bet most of you are picturing those beautiful elliptical wings of the Supermarine Spitfire.
And you wouldn't be wrong to think that. The Spitfire had the glamour, it had the speed, and it certainly had the post-war PR. It was the sports car of the RAF. But that's not the whole story, is it?
Not even close. The aircraft we're analyzing today, the Hawker Hurricane, was the actual backbone of that defense.
It really was.
So our goal today is to set the record straight. We're going to unpack how a plane that was technically half a generation old when the war began somehow managed to score the majority of victories in the Battle of Britain.
And not just that. It went on to serve on aircraft carriers, bus tanks in the desert, and even support jungle warfare in the Far East. It's a remarkable story of adaptability.
Designed by the legendary Sidney Cam, its core identity was, what? Rugged, reliable.
Rugged, reliable, and arguably the most versatile single-seat aircraft of the entire war.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning, the origins and engineering. Because to understand the Hurricane, you have to get that it was a sort of bridge between eras.
That is the perfect way to put it. In the early 1930s, Sidney Cam was working for Hawker, a company famous for its biplanes.
Right, like the Fury.
Exactly. The Air Ministry put out a call for a new monoplane fighter with 8 guns. Cam's design evolved around the brand new Rolls-Royce engine that would later become the Merlin.
The famous Merlin. But here's the part that just blows my mind. The construction. The Spitfire was all metal, a modern stressed skin design. The Hurricane was... it was a hybrid, wasn't it?
It was. The front part, the engine and cockpit, was a strong metal tube structure. But the rear fuselage was essentially biplane technology, a wooden framework covered in, believe it or not, fabric.
Doped linen, just like a World War I fighter.
Pretty much. And you might think that sounds archaic, like a weakness.
If you are enjoying this video, please watch it until the end. This greatly helps the channel and encourages us to continue our work.
But in combat, it turned out to be a massive tactical advantage.
Because it was so easy to repair.
So easy. Think about it. A cannon shell hits a Spitfire's metal skin. That skin is the structure.
So you've got a major structural problem. You need specialized workshop metal workers.
Exactly. It's out of action for a while. A bullet punches through the Hurricane's fabric. It just makes a hole. A ground crewman with a patch of fabric and a pot of dope, a kind of lacquer, can fix it on the field in under an hour.
So the turnaround time is incredible.
Yeah.
You can get it back in the fight almost immediately.
It's all about sortie generation. And speaking of being user-friendly, let's talk about the landing gear.
Ah, the wide track.
Yes, it opened outwards, giving it this incredibly wide, stable stance on the ground. It sat like a bulldog.
Unlike the Spitfire, which had that very narrow gear.
Very narrow and very bouncy. It was notorious for ground looping or scraping a wingtip if a pilot wasn't careful.
So for a new pilot, fresh out of training, the Hurricane was just much more forgiving.
It was the ideal next step. It was tough, easy to land, and it had that same Merlin engine. A solid, solid package.
Which brings us right to the Battle of Britain. This is where the Spitfire legend was born, but the numbers tell a very different story.
The numbers are stark. During the Battle of Britain, Hawker Hurricanes were responsible for something like 55 to 60% of all RAF victories.
60%. That's the majority of the work being done.
It was the heavy lifter, and there was a very clear tactical doctrine at play.
Right, this wasn't just a free-for-all. Fighter Command had a plan.
They did. The Spitfire was faster, it performed better at high altitude, so its job was to go up and engage the German fighter escorts, the Bf-109s.
Tie them up. Keep them busy.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the Hurricanes, which were these incredibly stable gun platforms, were sent in to attack the bombers, the Heinkels, the Dorniers.
So the Spitfire is the rapier, parrying the enemy fighters,
Yeah.
and the Hurricane is the sledgehammer aimed at the bombers.
A perfect analogy, but from the pilot's perspective, you're in a Hurricane, you know the 109 is faster than you. That had to be a daunting thought.
I can't imagine. You can't outrun them, you can't outclimb them.
You can't, but you had an ace up your sleeve. The Hurricane could outturn almost anything in the sky. It had a tighter turning radius than the BF-109.
So if you could sucker them into a turning dogfight.
You had the advantage. You get inside their turn, bring those 8 guns to bear. And because of that rugged construction we talked about, it could absorb an incredible amount of damage and still bring its pilot home.
You hear stories of them coming back with the fabric just shredded to ribbons.
Absolutely. A plane that would just refuse to die.
Incredible. But the war wasn't just over Britain. We need to shift theaters now to the Battle of the Atlantic. This is where the story gets really wild.
This was a period of true desperation. German Condor aircraft, these big 4-engine patrol bombers, were shadowing Allied convoys far out at sea.
And guiding the U-boats right to them.
Right. And Britain had no escort carriers yet. They were losing ships at a catastrophic rate.
So they came up with a solution that sounds completely insane. The CAM ship.
Catapult-armed merchantmen. And the Hurricat.
Okay, walk us through this because it sounds like a bad idea from a cartoon.
It was born of sheer necessity. They took an ordinary merchant ship, bolted a massive rocket-assisted catapult to the bow, and stuck a Hurricane on it.
And when a German Condor was spotted,
the pilot would climb in, they'd fire the rockets, and he'd be blasted off the front of the ship into the air.
Okay, so you launch, you shoot down the German plane. Mission accomplished. Now what? You can't land back on the ship.
There's nowhere to land.
So it's a one-way ticket.
It was a one-way ticket. The pilot had 2 choices. Either bail out via parachute near the convoy, or ditch the aircraft in the freezing Atlantic.
And just pray someone could stop and pick you up.
I mean, the courage that took is almost unimaginable. You are knowingly sacrificing your aircraft to save the convoy.
But it worked.
It did. It forced the Condors to keep their distance. And eventually, of course, this evolved into the Sea Hurricane with an arrestor hook for landing on proper aircraft carriers.
And again, it beat out the naval Spitfire, the Seafire, in that role initially.
It all comes back to ruggedness. A carrier landing is a controlled crash. The Seafire's delicate undercarriage just couldn't take the punishment of hitting a pitching deck over and over.
But the Hurricane's wide, sturdy gear could.
It could. During Operation Pedestal, the critical convoy to save Malta, Sea Hurricanes were the backbone of the defense. They performed brilliantly.
So we have a dogfighter, a bomber killer, a naval interceptor. But the evolution didn't stop there. The firepower just kept getting bigger.
The armament upgrades are a story in themselves. It started with 8.303 machine guns. A lot of bullets, but not much punch.
Like a shotgun blast.
Right. Then came the Mark Icy, with 4 20mm Hispano cannons. Suddenly, it had immense destructive power.
But my favorite has to be the Mark ID, the flying can opener.
Ah, yes, a truly unique variant. They took 2 40mm anti-tank guns, essentially artillery pieces, and mounted them in pods under the wings.
The recoil must have been unbelievable.
Pilots said it was like hitting a brick wall in midair. They used them in North Africa against Rommel's tanks.
It's literally popping tanks from the air.
Exactly. A pilot could come in low, fire a couple of those 40mm rounds into the rear or side armor of a Panzer, and that was that. It proved the airframe was strong enough to carry ordnance its designers never even dreamed of.
From the freezing Atlantic to the North African desert, let's go to the final theater, the Far East. The Forgotten Air Force.
A grim chapter, initially. When Japan entered the war, the RAF in Singapore and Malaya were completely outmatched.
They had those old Brewster Buffaloes.
Which were no match for the Japanese Zeros and Oscars. Hurricanes arrived in crates assembled in a frantic rush, but it was too little, too late.
But they found their footing in the Burma campaign.
They did, and the conditions there were a nightmare. Not manicured English airfields, but muddy makeshift strips cut into the jungle.
And the weather.
Yeah.
Monsoon rains, extreme humidity.
That heat and humidity was actually a huge problem for other aircraft. The famous Mosquito, a brilliant wooden plane, literally started to have its glue fail. The airframes would come apart.
But the Hurricane, with its metal tube frame and fabric, it didn't care.
It just kept going, and its role shifted again. It became the Hurribomber, a ground attack specialist.
And this is where they developed the cab rank system.
A fantastic tactical innovation. Like a taxi rank, you'd have Hurricanes loitering over the battlefield.
Waiting for a fare.
Exactly. A forward air controller on the ground with the infantry would get on the radio and say, I have a Japanese bunker at these coordinates, and a Hurricane would peel off, dive down, and drop bombs or strafe the target, sometimes just yards from friendly troops.
That's incredible close air support.
It was. They also flew tactical reconnaissance. flying at treetop level, spotting enemy movements under that dense jungle canopy. Gritty, dangerous work that only an aircraft as tough as the Hurricane could sustain.
So fighter, bomber, tank buster, naval interceptor, recon plane. That brings us to its legacy.
Well, over 14,500 were built. They served everywhere, from the Arctic convoys to the equator. The Soviets received thousands of them. It was a truly global aircraft.
And yet if you go to an air show today, everyone flocks at the Spitfire.
The Spitfire won the beauty contest, no question. It captured the public's imagination. It's the thoroughbred.
But the Hurricane was the workhorse.
I think the historical reality is that the Hurricane won the war by simply being there, by being repairable, and by being adaptable enough to do whatever job was asked of it.
It's a classic lesson, isn't it? In engineering and, well, in life. Sometimes rugged and reliable is so much more valuable than fast and glamorous.
That's a very apt way to put it. The Spitfire is the sports car you show off on a Sunday drive.
And the Hurricane is the pickup truck that actually builds the house.
Exactly. It was the essential tool that got the job done.
Well, that brings our session on the Hawker Hurricane to a close. We really hope you have a new appreciation for this tough, fabric-covered fighter that, in many ways, saved the world.
It certainly deserves its place in history, right beside its more famous stablemate.
Absolutely. If viewers enjoyed the video, they can subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell to be notified about new videos, click the like button, and share the video with their colleagues, as this helps us maintain the channel. Thank you.